Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone along today to the NCBI Labs technology event. Without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Jude Marr, who's going to be our MC for today's live event. Jude.
Thanks, Karen. Very good. So we're looking forward to the event today. So what have we got lined up for today's event? Well, one of the apps that's proved to be really popular for blind and vision impaired people recently is the Be My Eyes app. And today in our Apps in Focus section, we're going to have a really good look at that app. What's the idea behind it? How does it work best? And we have a couple of guests to help us to do that. So Joe Lonergan is our guest NCBI Labs trainer for today, and he's prepared a really good overview of the Be My Eyes app. And then we're delighted to introduce the founder of Be My Eyes, Hans Jørgen Wiberg, who's going to be joining us from Denmark today. So we look forward to hearing from Hans as well. Also coming up a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about some big tech news that was announced recently. The release of the second Apple iPhone SE. So is this the device that wins over the Android users and settles the debate once and for all? Or is it worth switching over to if you're already an Apple user? Well, Joe Lonergan is back with us to talk about that a little bit later on as well. And in our final piece today, Seeing It Your Way, we look at how you use technology every day to make life a little bit easier. And our guest this week is Paul Joyce from Galway City, who will who'll talk to us about his experience using technology in everyday life. So who else have we got with us today? Well, joining our guests, Hans Jørgen Wiberg and Joe Lonergan, we have our regular panel on the line. You'll be glad to know that everyone's still friends after last week's big debate. We have Kyron back with us, our Chief Technology Officer. And back with us too, we have our NCBI Labs trainers, Sean Doran, JP Corcoran and Daniel Dunn, as well as myself, Jude Marr. And we're all looking forward to another full programme on our fourth live event. Just a reminder that if you do have any comments or questions, as Kyron mentioned earlier, if you want to use the questions panel on the right-hand side, or if you want to email labs@ncbi.ie, labs@ncbi.ie, then we'll be happy to try and find an answer to your questions as well. So now we're going to start off with our Apps in Focus section. This week we're looking at Be My Eyes, as we mentioned. And we're going to have Hans Jørgen Wiberg with us. Karen, do we have Hans on the line already?
We're just about to. So just give me one moment. We're going to see if we can dial Hans in.
Excellent. And just after that, we're going to have an overview from Joe Lonergan of the main features of Be My Eyes. We're looking forward to hearing from Hans as well if we can get him on the show today.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Hans, are you there?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm here. Hi.
Yeah, I think we were all here to kind of taking a very deep breath to make sure that the technology would work to allow you to dial in.
It's very good to hear your voice, Hans.
Thank you so much.
So, and I suppose that's kind of ironic considering we were doing a technology interview on a technology podcast that everyone's worried about technology. So
it hurt my feeling a little bit, but
so our apologies. We do that. It was nothing was meant in. It was just a jest. So I think it would be good just to say, first of all, Hans, a huge thank you for joining us here today. I actually find this a particularly exciting chance to speak to you. And just before we allow you to give us a bit of an overview yourself of Be My Eyes, I thought I might kick off with a little bit of a story for myself. I thought, we've obviously known for a long time that Be My Eyes is an extremely popular app. And even I remember back when I was, earlier on in my career in technology, the amount of people that came to me that had fully, had normal sight and said, "Have you heard of this app?" I mean, you guys have been out so long and have almost been prolific, and it's a real credit to you how popular the app is. I mean, I looked at the statistics today, and there's over 3 million volunteers. I mean, that's just mind-boggling in terms of usage. So before we get into some of the cool things that I'm very, very excited about, and Joe, who is also a user of your app, is very, very excited about, why don't you maybe say hello and give us an overview in your own words of Be My Eyes?
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation to join. It's super easy to join meetings these days where you just have to be in your office, so that's a nice thing. Just a little bit about myself. I am 56 years old. I'm almost blind myself. I have been working for the Danish Blind Association for a number of years as a consultant and chairman for the blind people in my region. And back in 2012, I came up with this idea. I'm not technical at all, so I had no clue how to make an app or anything. But I managed to find some good people to join the movement, and we managed to raise some money, and it took a long time, and it also took a long time to develop it. But then in January 2015, we were able to launch Be My Eyes internationally. And from day one, we had a tremendous amount of press coverage all over the world, basically. And I'm not lying when I'm saying that from January and the next 3 months, we gave 2, 3, 4 interviews a day.
Wow.
For all kind of media. So it was simply super easy for us to get the attention, because we simply were called on for interviews. So that was also because we have basically spent all the marketing money on developing. So it was a good thing that we didn't have.
Actually, I think that was probably quite a forward-thinking way to approach marketing. Just spend your money on making your app as good as possible.
So, but I kind of assume that you know what Be My Eyes is, but still, I'll just say that we try to keep it super, super simple, and what you can do is basically tap one of the 2 buttons. So you can either call a volunteer, and when you, as a blind person, tap that button, we will notify 20 different people speaking the same language and pretty much living in the same time zone. Because we don't know what our volunteers are doing. So we need to kind of have a lot of people notified, and then the first one to say yes will get the connection, and we will make the live video connection between those 2 persons, and then they can take it from there. The other persons who said yes, they will then get a notification about sorry, or thank you for volunteering, but you were too slow to get the call. No, we don't say that, but something like that. And the other option that is available in Be My Eyes is called specialized help. So if you need help from, for instance, Google or Microsoft, you can call their support directly. And the good thing about that is that Google and Microsoft is paying Be My Eyes a monthly subscription. And the other good thing, and most important, is that when a blind person calls Microsoft via Be My Eyes, they know it's Be My Eyes call, and they know it's a blind person. So the right persons in their support system gets the call, the persons that are familiar with the programs that blind people are using, and they also get the video part. Normally, when you call support, you'll just grab the phone and call them, and they will most likely ask you, okay, what's on the screen now, or how many green lights is flashing on your modem, or something like that. But now that you have the video connection, they can actually see what's on the screen, and sometimes they even ask you if they can use TeamViewer and take over and so on, if that's what's needed. And as you mentioned, we have 3.7 million volunteers around the world.
That's so amazing. Yeah.
Coming from a small country, Denmark, with 5.8 million, it's kind of amazing that so many people are willing to step up and help the blind people. And we can help in 185 different languages.
Wow.
And as I mentioned, all over the world. And we have 207,000, I believe, right now, blind and low vision people signed up, all over the world. So that's kind of the short story about BMIS.
So what I might do is let's just pause for a quick second, and we have a little very short demonstration prepared by Joe Lonigan, one of our trainers here, who's is an active user of BMIS. So if you give me one moment, I might just...
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Oh, I think we might have lost Hans. But so just while we call him back, let's see if I can get him back.
You have called.
Unknown participant is now joining.
I'm not available at the moment.
I think we might have
Unknown
lost.
Participant is now exiting.
Lost Hans. Hold on. I'll try one more time to see if we can get him back.
In the meantime, it's a good time to maybe remind everyone that if you want to ask a question about the Be My Eyes app, you can use your question panel on the right of the screen, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie, and we'll be happy to put those questions to Hans if we can manage to get Hans back.
Unknown participant is now joining.
From Be My Eyes. I'm not available at the moment.
Oh, see, it's going straight to his voicemail. So,
unknown participant is now exiting.
So, well, I tell you what I might do is let's Joe, if you're there for if you could unmute yourself for a moment.
Hello, Karen.
Yeah, hi, Joe. So I think what we might do is we might just switch over to your video, and maybe you can give us your own experiences while we try and reconnect with Hans. So 1 second, and I'll run the video now, or the audio demonstration now. So
welcome to this demo of the Be My Eyes app. I'm going to show you the quickest and the easiest way of using this app. As Be My Eyes have made it really easy. So you don't need any experience of voiceover gestures or anything like that. You can call Be My Eyes straight away through Siri by holding down the home key, or if you have a newer phone, by holding down the lock key. So I'm going to hold down the home key on this, and I'm going to call Be My Eyes. So the things I use this app for are usually, mostly I use this app for reading dates, maybe matching colours, or reading maybe greeting cards or things like that come in the door that have handwriting on them or something like that. And it's loads of different uses. You can read loads of stories on Be My Eyes if you wanted to see how other people use the app. So I'm going to try and use it now. I'm going to hold down the home key and call a volunteer. It's open 24/7, so we're going to call somebody now. Call Be My Eyes.
Calling now with Be My Eyes.
Connected now. Takes a minute or so.
We're still trying to find the first available volunteer. Connected.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, how's it going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Could you read some dates for me, please?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to point the camera at the.
Okay, it's just upside down. You might see any
Okay.
dates.
No problem.
There's a bit 4th of May.
4th of May, okay. And I have a yogurt here now as well. And
Okay. Yogurts, you're still good until the 10th of May.
10th of May, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for your help.
No worries.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
And then a dialogue box pops up, and it says, I have experienced problems, or the other option is,
I had a good call.
I had a good call. I'm going to double tap on I had a good call. This gives feedback
First available volunteer.
to Be My Eyes. And then it lands you back inside the app.
Call first available volunteer. Button.
So I'll close the app and I'll show you. We can open the app really easy with Siri also if you want to see what else is available. Open Be My Eyes.
Be My Eyes. Call first available volunteer. Button.
And VoiceOver announces, call the first available volunteer. And I'll flick to the right.
Specialized help. Button.
Specialized help.
Settings. Button.
Settings.
Selected. Home. Tab. Stories. Tab.
Stories. Stories is where you can read how other people use the app, and you can read people that volunteer, and they tell you how much they enjoy doing the job.
Select settings. Button. Specialized help.
And when you go into specialized help, you can see what's available in there.
Technical. Heading.
So technical is one heading.
Google. Open.
So Google, you could call Google if you wanted support with your smart speaker or your Gmail account was locked, or probably loads of other things they could help you with. Microsoft, that could help you with technical difficulties to do with your Microsoft computer. And they're open from 9 to 5 in Ireland. It says open beside it there. Same with Google.
We are always aiming to grow the Be My Eyes community. Make a suggestion. Button. Selected. Home. Stories. Stories.
And I can go back up.
Microsoft. Google. Technical. One World. Together at Home. Closed. Button.
And One World Together at Home. They audio described a concert that was on at the weekend. So they're the amazing things Be My Eyes can do. And that's it in a nutshell. It's a very easy app to use. And it's also free. So thanks very much.
So that was very useful just to get the overview there of how you can use Be My Eyes. And it's always handy just to see a demonstration and to hear how that's done as well. So thanks very much for that, Joe. Maybe, Joe, we could ask you a question or two just as we're getting Hans back on the line. Joe, how long have you been using this app yourself? When did you start using this?
I probably started using it more in the last 2 years, I think. At first, I was probably hesitant to use it because you're talking to real people, and as you know, some people have a hang up. I like to use OCR apps and things like that, but then OCR apps don't always work for everything, you know. So I used this one day. I was stuck. None of my family was available to take a call, and I said, look, I'll try this, and it worked out really good. So then I kept using it. Once it worked out that time, I had the confidence, kept using it, and decided this is really easy and really quick. Yeah. And they've recently introduced Siri calling, so you can call Be My Eyes straight from Siri. You don't need to use VoiceOver or anything. Just hold down the Siri key and call them, and it makes it even quicker again. So it's like me just scanning something. I suppose a whole call will take you 2 minutes in total if you're just doing a quick thing like checking a date or checking a color on something, or you possibly might have dropped something on the ground, and you might want to scan around, things like that, simple things, you know.
Yeah. I'd imagine it's the sort of app which sometimes you might go a day or two only using it a couple of times, and then other times you might use it quite a lot, all in the space of a short time. It's kind of quite adaptable, is it? Yeah,
I'd say on average I use it 3 to 5 times a week, you know, but sometimes even another example would be when your computer is frozen. It's not speaking back to you. You might be able to hold the phone up in front of the computer screen, and it might say something like F1 to restart or something like that, but you wouldn't have a clue what is actually saying on the screen. But with the help of Be My Eyes, it can get you going again, you know. So I'd have, apart from just reading dates, you could, you know, it helps you with technology, all sorts of stuff. Even when your TV screen helps me get into the Sky menu sometimes if I want to see what's selected, that kind of thing. So yeah, I could use it a lot more, but on average I'd use it about 5 times a week, I'd say.
So is that the sort of app that would only be kind of usable then, you know, during working hours or something like that? Now, obviously, it's a bit more flexible than that, but is there a bit of a limitation on that in terms of maybe nighttime?
Not really. A funny situation was one time I had a bottle of beer left out in the shed, and I said, look, I'll bring it in and see what the date is on it. And this was like 11 o'clock at night. It was nice and cool, so I said, look, I'll ring them up, check the date on it. I don't know how long it was out there. They were able to check the date on the bottle of beer. This is 11 o'clock at night, so they rang somebody in America.
Participant is now joining.
And it was more at their time zone, you know. So it tries 20 people in your time zone at each time. So if you rang somebody at 4 a.m, I suppose maybe Japan or somebody like that, I might try somebody from there. But Ireland, I suppose I'll try somebody from an English-speaking country as well, So it tries different time zones that are suited,
Yeah,
And
very good.
Just interrupt for 1 second. Hans, do we have you back on the line?
We have, yes, thank you.
Oh, brilliant. I'm not sure.
And I
how
can
we lost
also, I'm wondering, why do you need me when you have Joe? He's doing good.
Yeah.
You're the king that made this app, so we need you.
So,
thank you so much. So.
just before we lost you, Hans, we were just saying that we played a quick overview of Be My Eyes and Joe actually using it, which I think was really. I think the thing, I don't know if you got to hear that, but the thing that really impressed me on that is just how simple it was for someone with sight loss to say, I need to know what the expiry date is, or I need to know like color or something like that. I have to say that simplicity in terms of the app, I think is huge, and it was very impressive.
Well, thank you. But it's also when we started to develop, we had all kinds of idea what we could build into the app. But then we looked at the money and we looked at the how long time it would take and so on. And then we started to realize that maybe it would be a super good thing to make it as simple as possible. And so we narrowed it down to make it super easy to sign up. There's some necessary steps that you need to go through, but the interface is there is basically only 2 buttons that you need to know. And also because I know from my work in the Danish blind community that many of the blind people are like 60, 70, 80 years old, and they are not used to technology, but maybe their son or daughter brings them a smartphone and said, oh, I have, please try this out, and so on. So you need to kind of keep it super easy to use, and that's an advantage for everybody, that it is something that's easy to use. So
I'd imagine with an app that is so easy to use, Hans, you must have had quite a bit of feedback of the various ways that people use it, because when you've got a really nice, simple app, people can kind of apply that simplicity to many different kind of applications in everyday life. Do you have any kind of, have you heard any particularly interesting ways that people have used the app?
Well, there's a ton of different stories that we hear. People are super nice to write emails to me. One of my, you might have heard me say before, but one of my favorite stories is also describing what was kind of happening in these calls, because there was a lady from Washington in the U.S. She was about to sing in her choir, and she needed a pair of black shoes. And she was using Be My Eyes to make sure she had black shoes. But when the lady actually in Ireland picked up the call, she realized that she was singing in a choir. That was the lady in Ireland also. So they forgot all about the black shoes and started talking about what are you singing in your choir and so on.
Wow.
And the call ended up with the lady in Ireland who was actually with her choir at the time. So they were singing across the Atlantic to this lady in Washington. And it just kind of shows that it's important to have the right shoes on, but it turned out to be something more than that. But we also have a bunch of calls that are like 15 to 25 seconds. Like, have I set my oven to 200 degrees? Yes, you have. Thank you so much. And that's it. And you would never ask your neighbor over to kind of confirm that. But the sighted people, they go back all the time to see what I just did. Did I really do that? And it's just a nice thing that you can, in a super easy way, that you can also kind of just be sure about something and not kind of take the risk of
That's a wonderful example. I mean, it's just that it's almost that life enabler. You know, I'm a big believer that technology is a huge enabler for people with sight loss. You know, and even though you're using technology for ask for help, it's in such a quick manner, such an enabling manner. It's a very, very impressive. I am curious though, if you look back on, you know, I was reading the timeline on your website of the application, and so back in 2012, was it 2012 you had the original idea? I'm really curious. I mean, if you think back to 2012, like applications and, you know, smartphone applications were so in their infancy. I mean, I think, you know, I wouldn't want to take for granted how revolutionary, you know, to come up with a concept like this was back then. So I was just wondering where the inspiration came from, or where the thought process for you came from for Be My Eyes.
Well, in my work with my blind colleagues here in Denmark, I visit people in their home and talk to them, and a few of them back in 2012, they were using Skype to call friends and family, kind of to do the same thing. And I remember one of them said, but I always have to call someone. And that's where I came up with this idea that we should just make a group so we could kind of share each other's brothers and sisters. So I was thinking that cannot be that hard to do. Very optimistic, and I soon realized that it was not an easy thing to do, and also it wasn't that easy to find developers who knew about integrating video calling in such an app back in 2013 when we had raised the money. So it took quite a long time to find the right people to do it and so on, and also just.
And did you build
out the concept? Yeah.
Did you build the application in Denmark? Did you use local technology teams?
Yeah, we hired some Danish engineers that was willing to kind of go into this field. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that in itself, I mean, something that we get a lot here in the NCBI in Ireland is people approach us with ideas for technology, and you know, and say to us, and you know, I have this great idea, but how do I turn it into a product? And that's a hugely powerful thing to do, because the idea. Idea is almost somewhat the easy part, and the building the technology can be an incredible challenge to overcome.
Yeah, that's saying that the idea is 1% and the rest is hard work.
Yeah.
I usually say that's where my team comes in. So, but it is absolutely true that you need to put a lot of effort and thinking and good people into making the whole thing a reality. Absolutely.
So. I'm actually kind of curious as well to dig. So from day-to-day support, I mean that's hugely powerful, and the examples Joe gave as well. But something that you and Joe both touched on was the specialist support, which is a big part of Be My Eyes now, and the support that you have available through partnerships with companies like was Microsoft. I think there was one other I might have missed that do specialized support. For what was the other company? Just if you might remind me.
There's a Google.
Google.
And then there's Procter and Gamble. We have Procter and Gamble is a huge American company, and we have Clear Blue, and that is a pregnancy test. It's actually kind of also a funny story, because before Clear Blue came on board as a specialized health partner, we also had blind people using Be My Eyes to do the pregnancy test, and it's kind of because if you are a blind person and you don't want to ask someone in your surroundings about this, you just want to find out for yourself, maybe just for an hour or two, then you basically didn't have any other options than using Be My Eyes, because that's the only way where you can kind of call a anonymous random person, and you don't have to say who you are or anything. You can just show the test, and they can say whether it's positive or negative. But now we have Clear Blue on board, and they can guide you through the whole process of taking the pregnancy test and all that. And we don't have that many calls, but it's I think that's some of the more important calls we have. So, well,
you don't do it too many times in your lifetime, you know. So, but it is an incredibly important time in your lifetime, you know. And it's one of those life situations that I suppose I would never have occurred to me, you know, that you might need sighted support on it, but it's an incredibly private thing as well, you know. So that's an incredibly empowering tool.
Yeah,
I think
and
just
we
listening
got some
in.
really touching emails from the volunteers who said, "Oh, well, I just had this totally amazing call," and so, and that's how we found out that this was actually a need. So we could approach Procter & Gamble and Clear Blue and have them on board.
I think that actually just listening in, from the perspective of somebody who doesn't rely on the app myself, it's actually very enlightening just to hear all of the different applications for it, because because of its, as you mentioned before, its simplicity. It's so good to be able to actually see those different applications through many different kind of life events and things of various varying importance as well, because of again how easily usable it is. What do you think will be the future of Be My Eyes? Have you got other things in the development phase at the moment? Have you got other sort of features or other partnerships that you're working on at the moment?
Well, as it was just briefly mentioned that we partnered up with Global Citizen with this World Concert event, where we managed to have a live description. And we actually did three things that I think is super interesting. We had a professional, what do you call it? When you describe what's on the TV, it's called
voiceover, is it? Or narration?
Audio described version, and that is actually available online. If you want to hear the concert again and have it audio described, you can go into the Be My Eyes YouTube channel, and you can hear the whole thing audio described. But we also, and which I think was super interesting, we had a family who was live before the concert, who was describing the whole pre-show thing going on. And then during the show, you could call in, and we had volunteers who were seeing the show, and they would kind of sit with you and see the show together with you. And because we have so many volunteers, I think we could do that, maybe scale that up. So that's something we hopefully will look into and see if we can kind of put into a system where you can always have someone. If you want to see something together with someone, you can kind of just make a Be My Eyes call and say, can we please see this together? It will not be a professional in any way, but it will be someone there for you. So you can say, okay, I would like to know about how the buildings are looking, or I would like to know what kind of clothes they have on, or are they skinny or not so skinny, or can you tell me what the hairstyle is, or something, whatever you exactly want to know about. I think that this is a super interesting thing that I hope that we can kind of go into, but I cannot promise you anything, but just something that
really good. I think that's a really interesting development, and I think that would be quite an exciting development for a few people. And we have a lot of people listening in at the moment who are asking some questions here. Can we just hand over to JP for a moment? JP has been collating some of those questions for you, if you don't mind, Hans.
Yeah, great. Hi, Hans. Good to chat to you again. And thanks very much for the talk there. I always find it very interesting hearing about the great ways that Be My Eyes is being used. A few questions have come in, Hans, and the first one is actually more direct toward yourself. It says, does Hans ever use the Be My Eyes app himself?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
When I'm doing quite a lot of traveling, and when I'm about to leave a hotel room, I have left too many chargers and so on. So I use Be My Eye to check that I have gotten everything. And here, where I have a wonderful wife, she's mostly doing the shopping, but sometimes she forced me to go out and do some shopping, and then I sometimes use Be My Eye to locate things in the shop that I just can't find. I have tunnel vision, so I have 1 degree vision on one eye and a little more on the other eye. So it's super narrow. So I can kind of read the text on my phone, but it's difficult for me to find items in a shop and so on. So that's where it came in pretty handy. So,
Great. Second question is, if you are a person living in Ireland but cannot speak English, can you set it that, for example, volunteers who speak Russian answer your call?
Yes, you can use any language anywhere. It works the way that we always try to find someone in the same country. So if you are a Russian blind person in Ireland, then we will first try to find a Russian-speaking volunteer in Ireland. That might not be that easy. And if you can't find one, then we just find someone in another place in the world. But we'll always try to find someone in the same country. And the reason is that, many food ingredients might be kind of local, or the expiry dates might be put in certain places in certain countries, and it's just easier if you kind of know the same products and so on, and also if you watch the same thing on the television and so on. So that's why we try to find someone in the same country.
Wow, that's fantastic. And there's one more question: is if I have the Be My Eyes app and I travel to a different country, will it still work?
Yes. If you travel to the US, then we will try to find someone in the US, but still speaking your language, of course. But it works exactly the same way.
Fantastic.
A little side note on that is that if you, as a volunteer, travel and to another time zone, and when you then get back, before we kind of realize that you have moved back to the time zone, we might call you in the middle of the night, because normally we only send notifications to our volunteers between 8 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night. So we don't disturb people at night, because if you as a blind person want help like 3 o'clock in the morning, we just notify someone in another time zone, and then of course it will not be someone from your own country, unless you live in Russia or something like that. So we have many time zones.
Of course. It's great. Thanks, Hans. There's one kind of general point, I suppose. I heard you speak at a recent event, Hans, and one of the things that struck me, you were speaking to a group of about 15 or 20 people with vision impairment or who are blind. Some of them were actually saying that despite the fact that they had the application on their phones, they might have actually been a little bit reluctant to use it at times, thinking, oh, maybe I'll be disturbing someone. But am I right in thinking like this isn't actually the case? I mean, the volunteers want to be contacted.
The most emails I get is from volunteers disappointed about not getting enough calls. So don't ever hesitate. But also, I would say, don't just sit and make calls all day long, because the volunteers also expect that it is something maybe not super serious, but at least something relevant, and not only to talk or something like that. But it's perfectly fine, I would say, if you have, can you tell me what's in this bottle? And then you end up having a wonderful conversation. That's perfectly okay, but it should not be the purpose of the call. So just to make that clear.
Great. Thank you, Hans. They're all the questions for now. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very good. Thanks very much, JP. Appreciate those questions, and really appreciate the opportunity we have to talk to you as well, Hans. It's clearly an app that is making a tremendous impact on people's lives, and it's certainly something that we can see will go on to have even further success as well. Karen, was there any other questions that you?
Yeah, I think just before we let Hans go, and I really appreciate your time today, I thought it'd be interesting to get to ask you two kind of general questions, Hans, if that's okay with you. The first one really is, as someone with sight loss, other than Be My Eyes, is there any technology that you find as a huge enabler to you in your day-to-day life?
Well,
I caught you off guard today.
I can tell you, like FaceTime and TeamViewer, I'm using every day because now that we are at home, we cannot go to our office. Then that is specifically one of my colleagues that I'm working together with, and I just turn on FaceTime at 9 o'clock every morning, and then we kind of have it going. And we help each other. And when I get stuck on my computer, then he can kind of take over and help me get it working and so on. And I think that's totally amazing that you can just ask someone to take over your computer and they can fix something, and then you are back in business. And the fact that you can kind of have a phone call running all day long is also without even thinking about the cost of it. Maybe I'm too old, so but
it's something we use as well.
When I was a child, you really had to ask your father if can I borrow the phone for 5 minutes, and now you can have it running all day if you want to.
Yeah, I remember that growing up as well. Well, and my final question is, and I think it's just an interesting perspective maybe for people. Obviously, you're based in Denmark, and I see Denmark have begun to ease the COVID-19 restrictions, and just wondering what is life like in Denmark at the moment for someone with sight loss, relating to COVID-19.
Well. Just about, we have been super lucky that we haven't had that many people who have died. It's still super serious. My nephew's my niece's husband has just yesterday been gotten the coronavirus. So it's still a super serious thing. And of course. We can see if you look at Spain and Italy, we can see that we had a quite significant raise in the calls in those two countries, the Be My Eyes calls. We have not seen that in Denmark, and I assume that's kind of because we have not been that hard hit by the virus. But it is, it's super serious, and we can also see, especially on the emails that we get, that the people struggle, to especially do some shopping and find out what they what kind of email, not but mails they get, and so on. And more than usually, because they don't have a sighted assistant in the same way that they used to. And also, simply loneliness is an issue, absolutely. So there might be a little more calls than where you kind of call with an excuse to call. But that's perfectly fine, absolutely.
So let me just finish up by saying a huge thank you for coming on to the live event today. It's been incredible talking to you, and it's it's an incredible application that many of the community here in Ireland utilise. I think again, I don't know what else to finish on other than saying a huge thank you, Hans. It's been much appreciated.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that there'll be loads more people, if they haven't already downloaded the app and tried it out, they'll be wanting to try it out after hearing about this. So I'll just echo Karen's thanks there as well, Hans. We really appreciate you coming on to talk to us.
Thank you so much. And also, I just want to say that lately we have brought on some of the blind organizations in our what do you call it in England? NRP? No, what?
RNIB.
Yeah. They are on as and Galloway's as on as specialized help, so you can kind of call them directly there in a super easy way where you don't have to kind of look for the phone number and so on.
Yeah.
And we hope to bring many more organizations on board as specialized help customers.
Yeah, I think that's really, really interesting, and we can hopefully talk some more on that, because we're already we do offer technology support here, but it's not visual based support. And any way we can incorporate that and add additional support to service users here in Ireland or those with sight loss, we're absolutely open to. So,
but you don't really have to kind of do technical support. It could just be, can you tell me about what this organization and so on, and that's perfectly fine. But we are absolutely open to talk about that.
Yeah. Cool. And as I said, just to let you know, Hans, we'll publish this video to YouTube as we do each and every week, and I'll send you on the link to it in case you want to listen back afterwards. And the other thing as well is in the description, we'll also reference the stay-at-home concert that you had audio described as well. So I think that would be useful for people to have a listen to.
Thank you so much. That would be wonderful. Absolutely.
So thanks again for joining us, Hans. Really appreciate that. We look forward to seeing what else you come up with in the future as well, now that we've got a taster for that. And for anybody who wants to download that, that's a very widely available app. Whether you're Android or iPhone user, you'll be able to get that from your App Store or your Play Store.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
So now we're going to move on to another big development recently, the announcement of the Apple iPhone SE, or to be accurate, the second version of the SE. And joining us again for this part is NCBI Labs technology trainer Joe Lonergan. Joe, you're getting plenty of exposure today. You're involved in everything today. That's great. So Joe, you've been just having a bit of a look at the features of the iPhone SE, the second edition. What can you tell us about the features?
Yeah, well, as improvements go, it's a big upgrade from the older iPhone SE, which was similar to the iPhone 5. So it's got an A13 Bionic chip, which is the same chip that's in the iPhone 10 and 11 and 11 Pro. And this means it's got a faster processor. So, and it also will support new versions of iOS going forward. So Apple will tell you that it won't go out of date for at least 4 years, or will support the new iOS updates for at least the next 4 years. As I suppose anybody that has an older phone like iPhone 5 or 6 will be trying to upgrade to a phone like this. It also has the home key returning to a newer iPhone, which is a great development for lots of people, especially vision impaired people that may not be comfortable with Face ID. Also, Face ID, if anybody's wearing face masks these days, Face ID is not going to work too well. Face ID doesn't work very well in the nighttime either, in the dark, I suppose, and in your bedroom if you don't want to turn the light in nighttime, Face ID isn't that useful. So Touch ID is really useful in cases like that, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're supposed to be on the loose or anything like that, and you're confined to a space as well, it's not easy to hold up your phone, you know. So
yeah,
it's big welcome addition was the Touch ID, the home key coming back to the iPhone.
Yeah, very good. So just to kind of give people a bit of a picture in their mind, I suppose, of what we're talking about here, it's pretty much the same size and shape of one of the older iPhones, the 5, 6, is it the 6, 7, and 8?
6,
I think
7, and 8.
And you were saying there,
the smaller versions of those phones is not the same size as the 7 Plus or the 8 Plus. It's the original version of the 6, 7, and the 8. So the 4.7 inch.
Okay.
There is no big large screen version of this. It just comes in 4.7 inch, which is also welcome for a lot of people. They like the smaller phones. There is a lot of people out there that love smaller size screens.
Yeah.
It's still not as small as the old 5. It's a bit bigger than that, which is good as well.
Okay. Okay, and so it's basically, if you're thinking about it, it's that kind of physical shape and size, but it's got the brains of a much newer iPhone in it, and it's got a physical home button. Is there any other features in it that are kind of new or that are noteworthy?
Well, yeah, I suppose this can be a plus and a minus. It's got a glass back and a glass front. So the last, I suppose the 8 was made of aluminium kind of stuff. So that means it was a bit stronger at the back. So if you did let it fall, there's more chance of it surviving. But you can buy a cover, of course, to make that prevail. The reason it's glass is to support wireless charging. So, if you bought a wireless charger, it's a slower type of charge, but you can leave it on your bedside locker at night, and there's no fumbling around for chargers or anything like that. And wireless charging can come in handy in lots of ways. I suppose it's if you're watching a movie or something like that and you wanted to stand up, or you have a wireless charging stand, things like that. So that's one addition. There's also I suppose when I see what else is there, the screen is much the same as the 8, so the screen wasn't updated. There is a newer camera.
Okay.
And
the newer camera, is that something that is still important to somebody? If you can't see the screen, is the camera still useful?
The camera is still useful, obviously, for a better picture, but for apps like Seeing AI, and I suppose even Be My Eyes, and probably less so, but the likes of OCR apps like Seeing AI, KNFB Reader, there is a couple of more scanner apps, that kind of thing. It's always good to have a better quality camera, especially going forward as they update the app as well, and they probably add new features. The newer camera, wider lens, all that thing will make a big difference going forward.
I think I think one of the hugely important things with the iPhone SE is that it's also cheaper.
It's cheaper.
Exactly. I mean, it's absolutely the entry level iPhone, but it makes a perfect device for people with sight loss, because though if you don't have any sight, the size of the screen is kind of irrelevant, so you get all the features of an iPhone 8 essentially, which is I think they're €700 or €800, and in most cases you'll probably get an iPhone SE free with the networks if you sign up for a contract. I think it's €499, which is very, very expensive to buy outright. But in all likelihood, if you're signing up to a contract, you're going to get it as a free phone. And I think it's one of those things is that it might be described as an entry-level phone, but it's still a phone that's packed full of all of the latest technology. That will ultimately support people with sight loss, which I think is to me is incredibly powerful. I mean, what about the usage? I mean, having the Touch ID back, the Touch ID sensor back, is a much more tactile way to use a phone. How do you find in general? Do you think that would be something that's going to be incredibly useful for people with sight loss, Joe?
Personally, I welcome the Touch ID back. It's even for buying apps, rather than holding your phone up to your face to give it, face recognition. Just to put your thumb on the fingerprint and allow Apple to take payment with your finger ID, it's a lot handier. And also for turning on VoiceOver with the triple click home, it's easier as well. I know you can do it with the lock key in the new ones, but I just find it more intuitive doing it with the home key. I think it adds more value to the phone to have Touch ID, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. One of the things that I find, I use an iPhone 11, and I have the one with the bigger screen because I've limited vision. But I know you mentioned wireless charging, and to me that sounds like it's a great feature. But for someone with sight loss, I used to always struggle plugging in the lightning cable, and you'd notice after about a year of using my phone, they'd kind of be damaged because I wouldn't quite get them lined up on the first try.
Yeah.
So having wireless charging has been a bit of a game changer for me, because I just put my phone down and it buzzes to indicate that it's charging. So I end up, getting a longer life out of it because of wireless charging, and it's a great feature, I find.
And there is lots of different types of wireless chargers available. But also one other thing I didn't mention is this can be a plus and a minus, I suppose, is the 3.5 audio jack isn't there anymore. You now have to use the Lightning earphones or AirPods, AirPlay buds, is that what they're called?
AirPods, yeah.
AirPods, I think.
AirPods,
AirPods, yeah. Apple AirPods are expensive. That's one drawback. But you get a free Lightning earbuds in the box, so at least you do get earbuds with it. But if you want the wireless ones, they're €200 plus.
Can I ask you just the most important question? I mean, did you listen into the debate last week about Android versus iOS by any chance, Joe?
Dangerous ground here.
I did. I listened in.
And would you think that the iOS won in that situation?
Personally, I would. I wouldn't go Android because myself.
Jude was very polite last week and didn't announce a winner, but I firmly believe that iOS won that discussion.
We'll have to keep a running score here.
I actually think that's one of the reasons, another reason that they brought back.
I see Sean and Daniel aren't unmuting themselves either to contradict me, so it was a hugely successful victory.
I actually think that's why Apple brought. One of the reasons they brought this entry-level iPhone in is to compete with Android. Apart from the lesser price, the Touch ID factor, they lost some users because they got rid of the Touch ID. And to bring them back again, they brought in a phone almost as good as the 10 and 11. And some people prefer the smaller size because they use it one-handed. You don't have to be holding it two-handed and you're typing either. So that's another plus.
So you're saying that basically Apple have had to up their game just to compete with Android?
Just like there is some Android phones out there.
So I think, if you look over the key features, it's essentially an iPhone 8 at a much reduced price. You've got a glass body, so you've got that reinforced glass, which is a good feature. It feels better in your hand. It's a smaller screen, and then again, if you don't have sight, why would you need a larger screen? It's got the same A13 chip. 12 megapixel camera, which is great for apps like Be My Eyes and also for other ones such as Seeing AI. Touch ID, wireless charging. It does also have fast charging, which feature I don't really notice. Too much. So there's some great features in there. One of the other things, the no headphone jack. It's kind of. I think if you're going to rock an iPhone or an iOS phone, you kind of get used to the adapter life, or you use you use like the Lightning headpods. One thing I wanted to mention as well, which is I found really useful, and just as a general user, is it does have increased water resistance, which actually adds to the longevity of the phone as well, because in just day-to-day life, I don't know how many times phones that I've used have just gotten damaged from, splashes of water, or, being out in a night out and it's sitting on a table where there's beer involved, or, or things like that. I think that's a huge feature. I'm not sure about Joe. Joe, what would you think?
Great feature, actually. Don't ask me how many times in this house phones have either slipped into sinks or even fallen down the jacks at one stage, or someone spilled tea on their phone.
I wasn't going to mention the jacks incidents, but yeah, go.
That has happened.
It is a reality.
I think the people that have these phone maintenance shops are cursing these waterproof phones now. They're not making as much money anymore. But that's a great, and dust proof as well. Often dust gets into your little ports down the bottom. That's one plus about having no headphone jack. The dust can't get inside and do damage.
So what would we, in terms of upgrading, that's the question that people, when we're talking to people on the support line, like in what cases would you recommend people upgrading this phone? Like if you had an iPhone 5, would you, or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever the case may be, at what point do you think is a good way or good time for people to upgrade to this?
Well, at the moment, iPhone 6 is Apple are not letting iPhone 6 upgrade past iOS 12. So, what version are we in now at the moment? Is it iOS 13 or 14? Well, it's going 13, so we're on 13 now, and if they're not supporting the 6 anymore, they're trying to phase out 6, and that means some of the apps, the newer apps, won't be working on the 6 either. So if you have a 4, 5 or 6, very little people have a 4 anymore. Some people still have a 5, and some people still have the iPhone SE, the older SE. So I'd be advising anybody that is coming to the life end of a 6, or they find the battery is getting not charging as well anymore, and they're thinking of upgrading, this would be the phone to go for, I would advise. Unless they need the bigger screen and they're have some useful vision and they want to read larger print, possibly the iPhone 11, if they can afford the iPhone 11 or the 10, they're the ones to go for. But in general, I'd be advising this phone. So some of the apps...
Can I just ask almost the other side of that question, Joe, just where you're going there with who maybe might go for a different phone? It's kind of interesting. On the face of it, you're talking about, even though it's an entry-level phone, it sounds basically like it's a premium phone, realistically, for actually a very low price. So is there anybody who you would recommend, actually, you don't need to go for this phone if you've got such and such, whether it's Android or Apple?
I wouldn't recommend anyone don't go for the phone, because it does everything you want to do. No, I wouldn't recommend anyone not go for it. Entry level price, yeah, I wouldn't say very, very low either, but it is to buy it outright. Yeah, it's not very low. But if you are on a bill already, it's almost, in most cases, it's free. And I've seen it for €99 on some contracts and for free on others. And as I said, Apple, I think, have a flexi fee option, or at least Harvey Norman sell it for a flexi fee option. So you can buy it by the week if you really wanted to. So look, I wouldn't put anybody off buying this phone, even if they have some useful vision. But as I said, it is personal preference. If you want to go for one of the bigger screens, whether that be an 8 Plus or one of the 10 XR or 11 Pro, some of those, they have really good screens as well. They might suit them a little bit better, but it's personal preference, as price often comes into it.
Yeah, very good. I think it might be a good time just to come over to Daniel, if we could bring Daniel into this. I think, Daniel, you've been just checking the questions that have been coming in about this. Can we pass over to you?
Yeah, we just have a couple of questions in on our chat side. First of all, does cleaning during this COVID-19 outbreak, does cleaning your phone with antibacterial wipes, would that be, could it cause any damage, any cause concern there?
Well, one of the things, if you don't mind me answering that, is actually I'd looked into that myself recently, because given how much we touch our phones on a daily basis, cleaning them is very important, and you don't want to damage them as well using antibacterial wipes. So Apple have basically said it's okay to clean your wipes with it's okay to clean your phone with disinfectant wipes, and they've released a support document on it. So the short answer is yes. And what we'll do is, when we upload this video to YouTube, we'll include a link to the article that Apple has said it's okay to do it.
Very good. Thanks for that, Karen. And also, maybe this one for Joe. I'm interested in upgrading to an iPhone SE, but the storage option to go for, I noticed there's 64 GB, 128 GB. I tend to take a lot of photos and record a good bit of video. What would you advise?
Well, first of all, I look at the phone you have already and see how much space you've used up on it. If you're touching on the 64, if you're going up towards the 64 gig and you're nearly full, I'd advise you go for the bigger option if you can afford it. You have to keep in mind that bigger the memory on the phone, the dearer the phone. The entry level is 500, and if you go for a 250 GB, you're talking at least €100 more. Well, I said on the bill before, you can strip that down a little bit. But yeah, I'd advise, if you're taking photos, videos, or using the phone for work a lot, I'd advise you to go for at least 128 GB.
Very good, Joe. And I suppose that leads me to one final question. From an Android user, can you put in a micro SD card?
Yeah, I think you can answer that one, Daniel. No, you can't. No.
Why would you want to?
Yeah, we're going to buy 128 GB. We don't need a micro SD card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that sounded like a planted question, that last one.
That's a plant.
I wouldn't think so.
Somebody with a vested interest.
Just can't admit defeat, can you?
Very good. So thank you very much, Joe. Karen, any final comments on the SE?
No, I mean, the one thing is if you do have additional questions or you are thinking about upgrading, don't forget you can call or email us. So if you want to email labs@ncbi.ie, we'll be happy to give you any further specific advice that you might need, and that technology support is available and to you from NCBI Labs. So labs@ncbi.ie if you have any further questions on the iPhone SE or any type of technology.
Brilliant. So we've been getting a good bit of kind of an overview of the Be My Eyes app today. That's been excellent. The SE is certainly a brilliant addition, and the being able to discuss that today, we really appreciate your contribution there as well, Joe, to answering some of those questions. It'll give us a bit of an overview of whether that's worth an upgrade for each person individually. It gives us the right kind of principles to weigh up for that. So over the last few weeks, we've been looking at quite a few different things like this, a number of different technologies, but demonstrating the features or testing a piece of technology is often a little bit different from how it works from day to day in real life situations, how it works in your life. So finally, today, we're going to take a few minutes to chat to somebody who uses some of these technologies in everyday life. So in the first of a new regular item called Seeing It Your Way, we're talking to Paul Joyce, living and working in Galway City. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Paul Joyce. Thanks for talking to us today, Paul. So, Paul, you're in Galway and you've been connecting in with NCBI for the last number of years. Can you just tell us a little bit of your story, maybe?
Yeah, RP is my eye condition, and I work in one of the government departments here in Galway. So it's subcontracted by the NCBI to the department, and yeah, I'm still working right through this COVID thing. It's still ongoing, so it is. So I'm working 5 days a week, 9 to 5. I've worked in different parts of Ireland. I worked in Sligo, Athlone, Limerick, Waterford, Longford, and different switchboards working for different government departments.
Very good. You're well travelled.
Probably since 1996, I'd say. Yeah. Very good. But I had I'm a long 10 years since I was about 21.
Okay. And aside from the long Ken, you were saying you have RP. Do you use kind of technology to help you out from day to day?
Yeah, the technology I use, I have a CCTV on my desk at work, which is great for taking notes and messages and all that kind of stuff, and reading many of the updates we get here at work. And I also have a quick look, which is very handy for shopping and stuff, where I can look at the price tags or sizes in the shop and that kind of thing.
Yeah, very good.
They're the main. I've still got a bit of sight left, so I'm using my sight as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I'm not really I can still see bits. I'm using my sight as much as I can, which is very limited. Probably maybe sort of 95, 5 and maybe 5 and 10%, if even 10%.
Okay, yeah.
Sight left.
Okay.
And, then just a quick look, handy, just magnification really, and the iPhone I find very good as well.
We've kind of had a couple of webinars over the last few weeks, and we've been doing sort of instructional videos and overviews of some of the different technologies, but everyday life, kind of using these technologies in everyday situations can be a little bit different. How do you kind of manage with, for example, with the iPhone, do you use VoiceOver all the time, for example, or how do you use the accessibility features?
Well, I use VoiceOver on the iPhone if I'm out of the office or out and about. If I'm in the office, I actually switch off the VoiceOver and I actually put the iPhone under my CCTV.
Okay.
And read and whatever I need to write emails or text messaging, I'll just use that. But if I'm out and about, I'll use the voice. So I suppose as well, when I'm in the office, there's people around me. So it's I don't normally carry the headphones with.
Okay, yeah.
So sometimes with headphones, by the time you get them unraveled out of your pocket and the call's gone or whatever.
Yeah. Is that the main reason why you'd choose to use it that way, or is there any kind of, would you say, is there any drawbacks with voiceover other than that?
Probably is. I just find it harder to use the voiceover rather than using my site. I suppose the fact that I use my site as much as I possibly can, but I'm still prefer to rely on my site more than maybe listening to the voiceover.
Yeah. Is there any particular things that you've found that don't really work well with it? That's a bit of a flaw with it, maybe, or do you find that generally it can manage with most tasks?
It's kind of, you have to kind of do more, I suppose, with the voiceover that is kind of more. It's like, say if you make a mistake on you're writing the text message. I haven't figured out how to go right back to the actual section, but when you can do it under the CCTV, all I do is put my finger where the mistake is, and you're back there, and you can just delete that bit and then just type it out again.
So just kind of, it's more intuitive, I suppose, when you're able to use your hands.
Just backspace where you made the mistake. If you're listening to it, if you're using the voiceover.
Yeah, very good.
One of the little drawbacks.
And would you say, is there any other kind of tips that you'd have for people who maybe might be getting used to voiceover or getting used to some accessibility features on various different technologies? Is there any other little kind of quick cheats or tips that you'd have?
I suppose it just takes patience and tolerance, and I suppose discussing the technology with other people who might be using it longer than yourself.
Yes.
That would have all the shortcuts.
So do you use Siri much?
Very little, unless I'm out and about and on the move. Because, you're using the cane in one hand and you probably shouldn't be doing that. But you're dictating then as you're going along rather than having to type out a message as you're walking.
Yeah.
So then I would dictate in that situation. For quick messages, I dictate.
Yeah. And any particular apps that you found useful on the phone, or?
Fitbit is what I'm both using now at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say a few people
I'm in competition with a few people, so that's the one I'm checking out.
So if there was kind of others out there who were of the same mindset, who aren't particularly into technology, who might have even kind of ignored technology or avoided technology, would there be anything that you'd say to them about it? Anything that you find kind of has affected your life positively?
Well, it is definitely. A friend of mine said to me years ago, she was telling me, she's really good, Paul, you've got to get an iPhone. I said it'll change your life. I said, no, that's impossible. How can a phone change your life? And it hasn't changed my life, but it has definitely, the iPhone is definitely one of the better purchases I made in my life. So it is.
Yeah, very good.
It is quite straightforward to be using rather than using a laptop or a computer or desktop. I think, in my opinion, now it is, yeah.
So you use that for like all your communications and everything, the emails or messages or anything?
Yeah, it's much easier. And on the move as well, you can do stuff, and it's I suppose the iPhone is quite straightforward to use compared to maybe like a laptop or a desktop.
You'd find the iPhone has made things easier than like a computer or a laptop or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So what would you use your phone for? What would be your typical day's usage of a phone?
Phone, I would use it mostly for emails, texting, but I would also, if I don't have to have a magnifier or something like that, I will actually FaceTime friends of mine who have who would be on an iPhone as well, and you can use them to give you directions. Or if you're walking down the street and not sure where the shop is, you know what's around there somewhere, but you had. You just all just pull out your iPhone, ring anybody, it doesn't matter who they are. As long as they're not visually impaired, they'll be able to tell you whether you're outside the right shop or not there.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, definitely FaceTime is really good. It's very, very, very a very good positive thing to be having. I've actually, a friend was telling me he was on holidays, he rang a friend of his, and he wasn't very familiar with where he was, but he just, his friend just basically walked him down the street and told him everything was on. He was just going down the phone in front of him. Camera facing out the way.
Yeah, brilliant.
So you can, they were seeing in real time.
Yeah.
Exactly what was there. So So then after they had basically brought him on a tour of the streets around where he was staying, and that was him able to work away then from himself from that day on.
Excellent. And that's what you would use the iPhone for from time to time as well. You'd use it to maybe call somebody and get them to use the...
Or if I'm somewhere even in a shop or something, or you don't actually have your magnifier with you, just the iPhone just do the same thing.
Yeah, very good.
Just bring up someone, and they might all you need is a couple, not even a minute, like just what's that there, like. So that's like shops mostly you can get people to help you if you know it's on the way. So it's good, but just little things like that. But yeah, definitely for if you're walking down the street and you have something to do with it, just FaceTime someone.
Brilliant. And the other kind of technology that you're using a CCTV and a portable magnifier, are you?
Yeah, I have a CCTV at work. So on my desk here, so it's great for taking handwritten messages. And also different information and pieces are around the office. So when you are on the phone, there's have the info there beside you. And mostly CCTV, I do have the Lucky Plus as well. A quick look.
Yeah.
It's basically a portable magnifier.
And do you carry that with you everywhere?
Yeah. Because I was doing a course there now recently, and it's not set up for visually impaired people. It's massage and sports injury course, but I'm finding that I've passed the first year of it. But that's all kind of upside down. But it was great for just being able to follow notes in class.
Right.
So, last year a lot of it was practical, so which is really good.
Yeah, very good.
So it's and I just use just an ordinary dictaphone then for taking verbal notes in class.
Is there anything else that you've kind of got your eye on at the moment? Any other technology you've heard of, or anything that you'd like to check out?
Not that I've heard, but then again, I'm not keeping up with what's happening out there. I suppose that's the main thing, that I'm not actually staying in.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of. I don't think I've switched over from using different technology. I'm still, like I said, if I can use my sight, I'd always do that rather than listen to stuff or having an earpiece in if I can help it at all.
I think a lot of people would probably identify with that, in fairness. They'd probably use their sight where they can. The technology is kind of augmenting what you can already do yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, when I'm in class, when you're in class with you get to know, so you just copy the notes of the other people.
Be careful what you're admitting to there, Paul.
But once your people get to know you, and it's they're always willing to give you a hand.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving us your thoughts on those different bits and pieces. It's actually it's really good to see how somebody uses the technology. You don't have to have a kind of being an all-pervasive thing in your life to be able to benefit from it. So it's nice to see that. Very good.
Just have it there for when you need it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your experience with us there, Paul, and we look forward to catching up with you again. So that was Paul Joyce, and maybe as you were listening to that interview, you could identify with some of Paul's comments. If so, or if you've had a completely different experience of technology that you'd like to share, well, we'd like to hear from you as well. So please do get in touch with us here at labs@ncbi.ie. That's labs@ncbi.ie. And we'd love to hear from you. Now, NCBI continues to support people living with sight loss during the current COVID-19 situation in a number of different ways, as well as technology training. So if you want to get some advice or support, you can contact our national helpline on 1850 33 43 53. That's 1850 33 43 53, or you can email us at info@ncbi.ie. Well, that about wraps it up for today. We hope that you've enjoyed today's programme. Just thinking about what we've got for you next week, we're going to have a look at a couple of different subjects that are quite popular for people. We're going to have an opportunity to look at audiobooks, and we're going to have an interview with our Library and Media Centre Manager, Lena Kuzi, on accessing and listening to audiobooks through NCBI Bookshare and Overdrive. And then we're also going to have a look at the Google Home device, the smart speaker, again. And again, Joe Joe Lonergan is going to be joining us for that part. So we look forward to next week's programme. Next Thursday, we're going to be live next week. So the bank holiday has thrown the schedule a little bit next week. So just for your information, if you're wanting to join us for our live event again next week, it's next Thursday that we're going to do that. Just a reminder that if you want to access support from the NCBI Labs team, you can call us from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday on 1850 92 30 60. Or you can email labs@ncbi.ie. And if you'd like to support our services so that we can continue to provide services to those who are blind or vision impaired, you can also visit donate.ncbi.ie. That's donate.ncbi.ie. So all that's left for me to do today is to thank our contributors, and we really appreciate having Hans with us earlier. I'm sure you enjoyed that section as well. And thanks for all the work behind the scenes as well, for all those involved with setting the show up and getting it up and running as well. And we look forward to seeing you again next week for the next NCBI Labs live event.